Greetings everyone, welcome back to my sketchbook. Well, I had another sort of busy day. I actually got to take a nap too. Something that I've been wanting to do, well, yesterday and technically even the day before was just sit down and doodle and draw. That had nothing to do with Inktober, but kind of within the same sort of world of Mario in a way. And that, well, if you've been following along, I've been using like a timer and that sort of thing. And that sort of restriction is fun, but I want to do something kind of unrestricted and just kind of play around with something floating inside my head. So let's start off by finding a spot and just drawing. Something I typically do if I'm not using a pencil first is I like to work on the eye. I kind of been doing that for a while if I'm just doing kind of a drawing just for fun. The eye to me is an important thing, although not every creature, not every person, not every thing that I draw has an eye. If you draw a chair, it doesn't have an eye. I think you know where I'm going with that. But with this, I'm going to draw an eye to start. Not too complicated, but I'm going to kind of keep it cartoony too, so. A reasonable day today, weather-wise. It's definitely fall where I am. I'm not disappointed by that. It's actually kind of my favorite time of year, to be honest with you. There's this thing that happens with the weather where you have really, really nice days. It's really warm, and then it gets cold in the morning, and it just kind of goes like that. For some reason, I kind of don't have a great appreciation for the time change that's going to sneak up on us here soon enough, so I guess there's that. I don't have any sort of seasonal sort of sadness that comes over me, but I do like to have sunshine. It just kind of makes things better. People counteract that, of course, by getting, specialized lights or I should say lamps. I don't have one of those lamps. I try to go outside whenever I can. That's important to me. Let's see here. Just sort of, as I said, playing around with something inside my head. I want to do a maybe slightly more serious version of this character. And if you already looked at the thumbnail, then you know where I'm going. Let's see here. We're going to put quite the... What's the name of that monkey? It's a terrible thing for me to say, but I think it's proboscis. I think that's the right word. It's a monkey with a very large nose. This is not a monkey. This is Luigi. Now, why the cartoony nose, I'm not really sure. This is William's favorite character in the Super Mario world. I like Luigi. There's a thing that's awesome about being a little brother. And you kind of, well, for the most part, you take it for granted for a good chunk of your life to think that perhaps, maybe, somebody kind of opened a door for you in a way. Little brothers are funny creatures, I guess. Much like my buddy William. He is a little brother. Super cool dude, though. Let's see here. But Mario, so some of you probably know, although I don't know if I like the way this nose is going. They're supposed to be twins, and their last name is Mario. I guess most of you know that. So it's Mario Mario and Luigi Mario. Those are their names. Now what I'm going to do here is just kind of figure out something. I want there to be kind of like a large upper lip, but not super large. A little smile. Some of these details will be lost, of course, because there's something fun that our good buddy Luigi has grown. So yeah, supposed to be twins. In the Mushroom Kingdom, they would have been delivered by stork, as is my understanding. And yeah, you know what? I don't really know how all that stuff works out in this world. Wouldn't it be funny to find out sometime down the road that Luigi was actually the older brother? They don't have ears like this, but I'm just doing this because it's fun. His eyes are a little bit too intense at the moment, don't you think? Of course, they grew up as twins often do. They're not really identical. So there's that going on for them as well. Now, let's see here. I do know a few twins. I like to say that I'm not tricked by them. And there's reasons for that, of course. But I don't feel like I've ever really met identical twins. Now, some people will say, oh, yes, there are identical twins that you cannot tell apart. I've yet to meet them. And for some reason, and maybe I'm wrong in saying this, most twins definitely keep track of who the oldest one is. Let me back this out just a little bit. That is a lifelong thing to kind of lord over the other one. So that's the hat there. We're going to go roughly from the brow there, here. This is the back of the hat. That would be the kind of the front of the hat. So that sort of a thing happens. with twins. Maybe I'm wrong in saying that that's a typical thing, though, but your position, birth position, as a twin remains a big deal. At least the majority of twins that I've known hold that. So if you're a twin and that's not true, let me know in the comments. But I think that's kind of a big deal, even just amongst regular siblings. You know, who was the firstborn? Who's the baby? Kind of remains a bit of a big deal. You lose a little bit of that as you get older. Doodling like this isn't really a normal way of doing certain things for certain people, and that's fine. What I'll probably end up doing is just bringing out my brush and water. But yeah, I just kind of felt like drawing this. Not really complicated by any means. Most often with characters like this, you'll see the eyebrows where they're not like they're floating eyebrows, so like almost like an afterthought you put in the eyebrows, so they end up on the surface of other things. I'm just trying to figure out if I want to do such a thing, because it's kind of nonsense, but it's fun though. I think I will. It's funny though. I like the idea that perhaps Luigi doesn't really wear a mustache, like that he doesn't grow a mustache, but he just puts it on because it's part of the show. Wouldn't that be kind of a funny thing to do? I don't know if I like the look of the floating eyebrows. It's super nonsensical. Let's see here. I'm going to give him a slight collar. And we'll work on some of the other things regarding our buddy Luigi. Well, let's start mullet. He's got a beautiful, beautiful sort of tail of hair going on here. And he has brown hair. There's a Super Nintendo World set up by Universal Studios. I think the one in Florida is pretty popular. The one in Japan is supposed to be spectacular. It's kind of a big deal. So you have the opportunity to do a live sort of ride of Mario Kart. And how cool is that? And maybe that bit of hair back here should be more spectacular. I don't know. I'm going to treat some of this hair here a little bit differently. And we're going to work a little bit of this sideburn down. Go a little darker closer to the hat and behind the ear. As I said, I'll probably make my way around with brush and water. So with Inktober, I set a time limit and 10 minutes. So like right now, I'm roughly 16 minutes in. So I wouldn't have even really been able to finish what I have going on with this. So that's why I wanted to kind of take a moment to just kind of play around with this. Those eyes are pretty spooky, I can tell you that much. Especially that one. Next, let's see here. Because the mustache is so spectacular, it splits in two parts. Some of it will make its way around the lip, maybe even hang over it just a little bit. As I said earlier, some of these details are going to disappear. I can remember when they first introduced this character and how strange and wonderful it was to play with sort of different attributes of that character. So Luigi doesn't seem to be as strong as Mario, but he's really good at jumping. And he is awesome with fire. But yeah, that double jump though, yeah, that's something that's pretty spectacular. Now what was I going to do here? Get a cup. I'm going to see if I can... Ooh, that went a little bit... Oh. And a glob of water kind of came out of that. I did it again, of course. Awesome. Let's see if we can just use it. We'll join up the mustache a little bit more. And I'll get back in there and add detail back in. Create a little bit of drag it down shadow of the hat. Just pulling it down a little bit. A little bit under here. A little darkness in the hair. Move some of that over there too, why not? I will probably add a little bit more hair over there. But yeah, those eyebrows floating way up there, they are a bit much. A little under here. Slight amount under the nose. Just a bit of a blur. A little bit in the cartilage of the ear. Their ears are typically a bit rounder. As I said, I'm doing my own version anyway, so this is just for fun. Next, because this is just black and white, I'm going to put in little scratch details because I'm going to use the brush to shade in certain parts of this hat anyway. So right now I'm just adding a little bit around the fabric. And I can put in creases after if I feel like it. Underneath the hat would have a lot more shadow, so I'm going to add a little bit more ink underneath there before I drag the brush around through it. A little bit on the surface. Maybe a little bit more underneath here. Something I'd like to see, although not typical with characters like this, they kind of stay at a certain age forever. But I'd like to see, like they did like a baby version of these brothers. And yeah, I'd like to, see, I don't know, just like different levels of their age. If they can time travel and run into themselves into the future and say, oh yeah, by the way, look out for this, and Bowser's not your buddy, and all that kind of stuff. That'd be fun. So we're in black and white here. I want you to imagine that this is a beautiful, brilliant green. We're just under 25 minutes at the moment. Not that big deal. Not that big of a deal, I should say. A letting certain parts of the hat stay kind of lighter towards the top. If I have to go back, then I'll go back. But it must have been kind of a big deal for Nintendo to agree to be with Universal Studios. Now, as far as theme parks go, probably the biggest and most well-known is the Disney theme parks. They're kind of like, you know, the standard thing that you think of when you do indeed think of theme parks. Universal Studios is, well, I think they've done pretty good over the years, and a lot of that I think is owed to Harry Potter. I'm going to put this glass down out of the way. The cup, move it. I'm just sort of adding a little bit of detail in there because I think it's dried enough. I think I'll let enough time kind of go by. And this type of ink is not really a good friend to bringing out like the jelly pens, just because it is so mean and so wonderful with water. So it doesn't really treat that stuff so great. I mean, I can show you what that looks like. Here's an example. So here's one of those jelly roll pens, and let me see if I can get a little bit in this. Yeah, like it just kind of, it doesn't really do great things. It's not really made to go with this kind of ink. It does lighten it a little bit though, so I mean having a little bit of light gray in there is nice. Not that he needs a salt and pepper mustache, but I do like a little bit of something going on there. These eyes though, maybe. Let's see if we can tame them down a little bit. Because otherwise, you know, they should be maybe bloodshot. I'll let him look like he's had a long day. Oh, Luigi. Slightly tamed. I'm going to put a little bit of this in here just to sort of blur blend it, which is really all this pen can do with this kind of ink. Some blur blending. I'm going to go over here. And I'm going to extend a little bit of this sideburn hair business. A little darker there. Okay. Well, I don't know if I really want to do any more than that. As I said, you know, just the restrictions of 10 minutes per prompt just kind of made me want to say, hey, I want to dedicate a little bit more time. If this is your first time here, thanks for hanging out. There's a bunch of videos, a bunch of playlists. Get a look if there's anything that seems sort of interesting, or just comment or any of that kind of stuff. You can subscribe, you can like and share and all of that stuff. And there's a bunch of like shorts there as well. You can hype that. Now I typically don't do this sort of like the call to do that sort of thing, but if it suits you, that's cool. I do like to say hi to people and give shout outs as well. So, but yeah, thanks for hanging out with me and watch the channel grow a little bit, which is fun. I don't follow a script. That's probably pretty obvious. I do things in real time that may or may not be obvious. So if it takes me, half an hour to do a drawing, that's going to be how long the video is, which isn't really typical, I don't think. I think most people will edit down time. At one point, they used to kind of call that the MTV kind of brain. I think we've all kind of fallen into something with TikTok or Instagram or most of that sort of social media stuff where, we like short form things and we don't want to wait on results. I get that. I don't have that ability to do that though when I'm holding the pen though. I can't speed up my process to make my time go faster for me. So I'm not saying that I'm doing this to make you suffer. You have the ability to go right to the end if you wish. You can change the playback speed if you wish, or if you're just going to draw along with me, drawing your own thing or what have you, you can look at the length of the video and go, oh, well, it looks like he's drawing for 40 minutes today. I'm going to draw for 40 minutes as well and listen to this guy ramble on about some nonsense. And sometimes weird things will just pop into my head. And as I said, there's no script. I don't know lots of stuff. I like to learn things. But I've been around for a while that I have a weird memory for stuff. So things will just kind of pop out of my head. Kind of like if you're, and I've talked about this before, if you smell orange juice at the same time as coffee with bacon, that might trigger a memory. Or if you've stubbed your toe and smelled, I don't know, let's say cedar, that could trigger a memory. So somewhere in your head, you're storing information. Somewhere in your hand, you're storing information. I think memory is stored all throughout the body. And yeah, it's an interesting thing. So yeah, I ramble on. So join me for that if you wish. Well, that's an interesting sort of drawing that I did there. I don't know what happened with that. Some part of this looks like Jim Crochet. Time in a bottle. I didn't expect that. I was just kind of wanting to draw Luigi. And put enough care into it. Although not extreme. I have been known to sit down and spend a few hours on stuff. Even in a professional manner. So but yeah, the Jim Crochet thing, that just kind of popped. He also did was it Bad Leroy Brown, which in a way kind of reminds me of a Van Halen song, Big Bad Bill. Anyway, what else does this need? Well, I think that's going to be it. I don't think I need to go any further than that. Just sort of a kind of portrait, but not really a portrait. Yeah, no, I think I need to leave this alone. I'm going to do a quick little outline of the proboscis. And I'll check with William what he thinks of this. He's a good dude. And maybe someday he'd be like, oh, yeah, no, I want to put that. I want to put that on my fridge or something. Maybe, maybe not. Madeline's an awesome drawer, a fantastic artist. All right, well, there you go. A sort of a strange staring face, unnecessarily so, a Luigi. I don't really like that nostril, but that's okay. It's just in my sketchbook. Anyway, folks, thanks for hanging out. I think that's going to be it. I hope you have a wonderful day, and hopefully we'll see you at some point in the near future. All right, ciao for now.